Alright. So, on the 24th of this month, which was Thursday, it was like last Thursday, so almost a week ago, we finally moved back into our apartment. I'm back home, obviously. You can tell if you look around and you know what my house looks like. So it had been that... It wouldn't be exact because months aren't exactly the same amount of days every month, but on the 24th of January, we had to leave the apartment because there was a house fire, but it wasn't like a normal one. So I'm gonna describe for you. I like wrote a little text document just so I can like collect my thoughts. I think it was around like, so okay, January 24th, whatever day that was. It might have been like a Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know. I just like, it was around 2 p.m. and I woke up from a nap and I was like, it smells like someone in my neighborhood, like, or next door, like there's a fire at someone's house. And I was like, very weird. So I like walked up and down my own apartment to see maybe if it was in my apartment, but I didn't see any evidence of it. And all the rooms kind of smelled bad. Didn't see smoke. So I thought like, okay, it must not be my house complex. It's probably fine. So I just kind of like came back to my room with Luna and I sat in here and like, but the more I sat in here, the more it smelled just like really bad. And at this point I was like, I still kind of didn't realize that it could be my house because there was no smoke, remember? So, something about me that like I've probably talked about on stream before is that I have a really intense sense of smell. So when something like that happens, I'm usually the first to smell it, even if it's like not in my house, if it's like down the street or something. So I figured it was just that. And it just became more and more oppressive. Like I had to open the window. Again, no smoke still. So around like 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., which is when my neighbors usually get home, I went over to their house and I was like, hey guys, like, do you smell that weird smell? Like, did you see anything driving home? And they showed me to the back of their apartment, you know, like to the back door. And in their kitchen, a bunch of smoke was billowing out of their kind of like, what is it called? It's kind of like a radiator system, like a really old heating system. And it looks, I wish I could describe it better for you. I don't know the terminology, but it's like a metal box that like, I guess it like heats up the water that goes through the radiator or something like that. So a maintenance crew had come by and said like, oh, like there's a bunch of stuff that needs to get burned off. Like it's probably gonna smell bad in your house. Like don't worry about it. But looking at their place, there was like more smoke and they had fans like blowing it out the door. So, but up till now that was, sorry, well our assumption then was like, okay, this is all still normal. So I hung out with them till Chad came home a little later than those two did. And then when Chad came home, I had texted him, so he just came over to the neighbor's house and we were all chatting. I went next door to grab maybe like my iPad or some art supplies or something, I don't remember what, and the house was like filled with smoke. So I was like, oh no, and I walked back to our kitchen, which is in the same location, it's in the back of the house as our neighbors, and it's just like a ton of it there. So I like ran back next door and I was like, Chad, like come look please, it's scary. So Chad and one of my neighbors both went back there and they opened our utility closet, which is like right next to the back door, and like a bunch of smoke came out and it was like billowing, you know, like something was happening. The boiler says helmet condenser about the metal box. I guess it's the boiler, I don't really know. But anyway, so just like tons of smoke coming out. All three of us were terrified. We were like, we need to call the fire department. Like there's a fire probably in between our walls. So we did, and they came really promptly. The fire department did. They shut down the whole street, which I think is customary. They shut down the whole street. Sirens, boo! Like we all got out of the house. I was waiting outside with Looney Dog. I went back in briefly just to see the firefighters, like check out the back room or whatever. But anyway, so after, I don't know, like an hour or two, the firefighters kind of were in the process of like tearing down that middle wall between our two apartments. And everyone was kind of like upset or shell-shocked. I guess I was like calm, but I was kind of like overwhelmed. I was just like, I just gotta take care of my dog. Like it was a cold day in January, so as the sun started to go down, I put her in my coat and stuff. I put her little sweater on, I got her a blanket and stuff like that, and I was just kind of waiting to see what would happen. And finally the fire department just kind of like hacked that whole wall down, and they found one kind of like, I want to say it was like that big by that big. It was just like a piece of like really thick wood that had like, it had like spontaneously started to slow burn. We didn't know why at this point, but when they investigated the kind of like the exhaust for that boiler, the exhaust was like totally bricked up, so it couldn't go anywhere. So heat was just building up and building up until like, you know, the old wood just kind of like or not exploded, but you know, it started to incinerate. So, and I think by the time that I saw that plank of wood, because they like took it out and let us see it, it was like dark out. It must have been like 7 or 8 p.m. So our neighbors have like some pets too. It's a kitty cat and a dog, and so we were taking care of their dog for a little bit because one of my neighbors had all of us were okay except for this one neighbor who they had like pretty bad smoke inhalation symptoms, so they went to get medically treated for that. But we were pretty worried about them and just taking care of their dog. And we I feel like I'm rushing a bit. Anyway, they cut off the power and water and gas to our house, you know, right before they tore the wall down, you know, just so that nobody would be at risk. I don't think I have to explain why gas is like really flammable during a fire incident like that. So we were just kind of like either waiting outside or waiting in the dark apartment, because eventually Luna got so tired that I was like, I gotta take this dog inside, even if like nothing's on. She needs to like sit on something comfy because she was really tired. We were waiting for the building inspector to come and say like, is the place habitable? Can we turn all the power stuff back on? At least for one of the units, even if it's not in the ruined one, because our neighbor's unit got ruined worse than ours. It is that adjoining wall, but it was their boiler, so more damage. And the firemen also hacked in through there too, so not really our place that got the worst of it. So I remember, like, I don't remember how I could overhear it. I think I was just waiting at the back door or something like that, and of course the place is like all open because there was a fire and they tore down that wall. So I hear the building inspector walking through with one of his assistants, and then when he gets into the back of the neighbor's apartment, he sees the giant hole in the wall. He goes, no, like, this is not... He was just like, no. So he immediately declared it on the spot like unfit to live in. There was like a notice that I posted on Twitter that has the exact like details of what it was. So one of our how do I say this? Like, we live in like a row house. It's like a house of 4 different apartments. Is that what you call it? I don't really know. But it's co-owned by 3 family members. And I'm not going to get too into it because I just don't want to divulge that much information about our place or whatever. But 2 of the family members came out when that fire was happening, and one of them had said, like, go get a place to stay tonight, like, we'll cover it. So we did, and hold on, I have to think about where I am in this story. In case no. So, okay, so all the utilities remained off. That should be obvious. So one of the landlords did claim that this initial stay was going to be free, or that they would cover it, and like they didn't. And so for the first maybe like 2 weeks, I lost quite a bit of money, just paying for us to have a roof over our heads. It wasn't feasible for us all together to go stay at my parents' house because that spare room I used to stay in at my dad's doesn't actually have space. Like, maybe me, a really small person, could fit in there, but like me, my dog, and my huge boyfriend, like, not at all. I would say there's like maybe like 1/4 of this room that I'm staying in is free space in the usual guest room right now. So there was nowhere to go on short notice. We didn't have any friends who could house us, so we basically had to stay in the cheapest possible hotel. So that's what we did. Some of it got compensated by Chad's renter's insurance. Probably like less than half, I think. But anyhow, so that was a bummer. So yeah, we discussed like a couple times, like maybe me, Charles, I should go live with my dad, and you, Chad, should go live with your parents down in Florida. But for a couple different reasons, we didn't think that was a good idea. Especially because at that point they had been telling us like, oh, it'll be 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now that you can go back into your apartment. So like, what is the point of going to, paying like a couple $100s for plane ticket and going out of state? So that happened in January, and I want to say it was like mid-February or so that COVID became like more of a problem in the US in the area where I live in. So although we had been discussing those options of like staying elsewhere with family members, it couldn't actually come to fruition after COVID hit because, like, I mean, if you just think back to February, trying to travel then, it was just crazy. Like, you couldn't help but get trapped in big crowds and all that stuff, and we're not willing to take that risk. I'm kind of at risk for COVID, like, if I catch it, because I've always had problems with asthma growing up, and I still do. So we were, I think maybe it was like maybe, I'm trying to think. Chad called his insurance company sometime in mid-February to see if they had any options for us, like, as far as, like, somewhere to stay, or, like, we were reaching the end of our stay and we were like, we don't have anywhere to go. So it turns out that they have some affiliation with certain hotels where it's already set up, and, like, the insurance company will be able to foot the whole bill because of that, like, affiliation, or, you know, so to speak, foot the bill, but it's probably, like, free or subsidized or something. So we moved down the street to this new place, and it was much nicer than the old one for a variety of reasons, you know, foremost being that I didn't have to pay, like, $1,000 a week or whatever. So, whew. But even though that was a lot more stable, we would still have to reapply for, like, an extension on the reservation every week. So, okay, all this time we had kept being told that, like, it's only gonna take a little longer, it's only gonna take a little longer. And I don't completely blame my landlord for this, because as soon as COVID hit, the city infrastructure and bureaucracy began to get, like, 1,000,000,000,000 times worse. And, like, you know, building inspectors wouldn't or couldn't come out to check out the apartment with the contractor to do walkthroughs and stuff. Like, my landlord's insurance did supply him a contractor to do all these repairs, but you can only do these repairs if you get clearance to do them, or something. Like, that's in my limited understanding, it seemed to be something like that. So even though he was not kind of, like, being a deadbeat or anything about it, it's just that, like, it was the perfect storm of all the kind of, like, bad things in the world and holdups that could happen at once. And it ended up being, like, that's 5 months, right? February, March, April, May, June? Yeah, that's 5 months that we didn't get to go back to our apartment, and that things weren't really happening. So, trying to think what else is new. Right, I was just saying it was really stressful to have to keep applying for extensions. Like, that was the main reason that this stay away was so stressful. Like, every time that we got the extension, I was, like, very relieved. But then again, you reach the end of 3 weeks or 4 weeks and you're like, okay, like, I sure hope that we can stay here, otherwise, like, we're fucked. I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, we could go squat in our old apartment maybe. So unlike us, like, just to comment on my neighbors briefly who were next door to us, they kind of decided early on, I want to say, like, in February, that they wanted to break their lease and not move back into that unit. And that was the right choice, because that unit is still not fixed. We're back in ours and it's working, but the next door apartment, like, I don't know when they're gonna get it fixed. Like, it's kind of a mess, and there's a lot of work to do. So even maybe the landlords will decide it's not worth it, especially because they don't have tenants waiting to get back in there. So they moved away. They had their own difficulties with that, but since it's not really my story to tell, so I'm not going to go into detail. Last time I talked to them, everyone was doing okay. I'm not the kind of person who is going to, like, push you about talking about difficult things. So usually when I talk to them, I just talk about whatever they want to talk about. So it could be that, like, maybe they're still having problems, but I hadn't heard anything about it. So I hope they are still okay and doing well in their new place. So that, I think that was definitely the right decision on their part. And if I had been living next door, I probably would have liked to do the same. Okay, so as for Chad and I, we had a couple things happen during our stay. I'll say one more thing about, like, the extensions at the other hotel, which is that eventually we had to start paying rent abatement because our stay away from home was taking so long. And you can't just stay constantly somewhere else for free. Like, there's probably no home insurance or renter's insurance that will do that for you. So all that rent abatement is, if you don't know or haven't heard of it, is each month, I guess. Like, let's say you stay a month. The most that the company can charge you is whatever you pay for rent. So in that case, I guess I'll be specific, even though I don't love to talk about this on stream. That's like $9.75 split between me and Chad. So every, like, additional month that we would stay, we would have... Oops. every additional month that we would stay, we would have to pay rent. And that's okay. Like, I guess we would have been doing that anyways. So it's like, in a way, it's not really a big deal. But the reason it's not very great is that, I think it was in April, Chad got laid off. He worked at a school for people with special needs, which is to say, like, people on the spectrum or who have, developmental or behavioral problems or disorders, whatever you want to call them. Problem sounds really mean. But who just have, like, you know, mental or physical conditions that need assistance or, you know, like an environment where they can learn or whatever. So Chad had gotten laid off from that job, you know, supposedly because of COVID. But, and again, I'm not going to get into this too much, even though I'm allowed to say things about it now and I wasn't before. But, like, Chad had been one of a couple people who got fired because we suspect it's because they were chosen to get laid off because they had brought up complaints to management before about, like, students not being treated properly or for protocols not being, like, humane at the school, basically. So it was extremely shitty when he got laid off. At the same time, it's kind of bittersweet because that job was excruciating. Like, and again, this is not something we talked about on stream, but it was an awful job. It was really punishing. He'd have to do things he wasn't comfortable with often. It was physically a punishing job as well. So we were kind of like, I think we like celebrated after he got fired because we were just so happy he wouldn't go back, even though obviously it is kind of like financially risky for him not to have a job now. So that little diversion aside, that's why it became stressful when we suddenly weren't completely covered by insurance anymore to stay at a hotel. That was rough. Like, compared to if it had covered us more. I don't know. I guess there's no good alternative because we would have been paying to stay somewhere anyways, you know, to keep a roof over our heads. Let's see. Otherwise during that time, like, well, I just showed you all my stupid, like, little samples and stuff. I taught myself how to sew. Oh, hey, I'm wearing a mask right now, actually. I didn't take it off because I walk my dog all day. So I just, like, keep it on. I've been learning how to sew masks. So I made a bunch of masks. I made a quilt and a couple practice quilts. Making masks made me feel a lot better because it made me feel like I was doing something, like, really direct to, like, help my family members and stuff, or people that I know. So I put a lot of my energy into that. It was because of, again, the stress of, like, not knowing if we would be able to keep staying there. It was really hard to do commissions because you have to be in kind of, like, a specific mindset, not scared or unhappy or whatever. I do anyways to do art, so or less scared and unhappy. Like, it's like obviously in life you have many emotions going on at once, but anyhow, like, oh, that's right, I took a temp job for a little while, again because of anxiety and because I felt a pressure to kind of try to do something to help people during COVID. So there was, like, a person in my neighborhood who has some, like, mobility issues. What do you call that? Like, it's not just, like, limited mobility, I guess you'd say. So, like, doing chores and stuff was not feasible or possible. So I would go first 2 times a week, then 3 times a week. I'd, like, go do laundry and cook and stuff like that. And I would maybe, like, run errands to CVS or whatever. So even though, like, it kind of, like, put me in harm's way a little bit as far as, like, going out when I typically wouldn't, or, like, going to a pharmacy, which is, like, a bad place to go when people are getting sick. It was a good opportunity to try something different. Eventually, I think after 3 months, I ended up quitting that job because I just kept getting asked to do more and more stuff. And, like, I've talked about it before. I have a chronic illness myself, like a headache disorder, and I have it pretty well managed, but, like, this is kind of, like, why that I stream and I do... Hi, Luna! It's why I stream and do freelance, and, like, I can't really lead, like, a normal life is because of that. So it was good to try out something that was more of, like, a normal job or, like, an official job instead of freelance. Although I guess it technically still is freelance, but it came to the point where, like, I was giving up my own chores to go do someone else's chores. So, like, that, to me, it's, like, so obvious that I shouldn't be doing it. Hi, puppy! So Luna's fine. She didn't like moving, obviously. She's just a little baby. Are you gonna lie down with me? It's kind of funny that she came right when I was done telling my story. Did you know I was done telling my story? Oh, baby. So she did pretty good. I think maybe the first couple of weeks she got pretty upset to be somewhere new. She's also been, and it could be for like a lot of reasons. I'm not quite sure exactly what reason, but she started getting kind of, not aggressive, but reactive, very defensive of me when we take walks, like around other dogs mostly. Maybe there's some people she got iffy about, but, so I wouldn't call it like a behavioral problem per se, but, she was not, I think even though she seemed mostly happy and she liked having a big hotel room to run around in, I think she was picking up on the fact that we were stressed and scared and getting grouchy. Now that we're back in our neighborhood, she got to see all her little like dog friends that she knows aren't gonna attack her or whatever, so she seems like she's more secure now. She has been waking me up at 7:30 every morning. In the hotel, she had started sleeping at like until 10:30 in the morning, so I could sleep in, but like, she just spontaneously decided when we came back, like, oh, it's time to get up early again, like, oh god. So, alright, let me think, was there anything else? Had a job, quit my job. Yeah, I feel like even though it was terrible, like, I think it could have been a whole lot worse. Like, at no point were we homeless. We all had a shelter over our heads. Neither of us got sick so far from COVID, like, knock on wood. And, it's, like, yeah, I guess I think you can't get away from the fact that it's all, like, situations like that are stressful. You cannot escape that stress, but if you keep busy in some way, like, so for me that was, like, sewing or trying to think of practical things I could do, you don't get hung up on it as bad. Like, I guess, I don't know, like, I was definitely disheartened, but I hadn't, like, given up or anything like that. It really was, that's the other thing, our internet at the hotel was, like, very bad, so we didn't really stream at all. I think Trad tried it a couple times, and I tried it a couple times. I don't think I saved any of those streams, because I just wasn't going on the computer, but, I played NBA 2K12 and maybe, like, Animal Crossing a few times. But nothing special, so you didn't miss much. There might have been a couple videos that got deleted, because very suddenly this fire happened and I couldn't save any of them. So everybody's 2020 has been very bad. Mine just started being bad a little bit earlier than everybody else's. So, I don't know, like, I'm just so happy to be home. Like, it's funny because, this place is, compared to the hotel room I was staying in, it's, like, it's pretty trashy. Like, it's not nice, but it just feels good to be in my own terrible, cot-sized bed that's a folding chair. And, be around all my old stuff and art supplies and all that. Andy says, yeah, I want to do a run 2020. Everybody deserves one, certainly. Lady Kill Person says Helmet Condenser. Oh, from the Animal Crossing streams. Yeah, it is a shame that I didn't save those streams for that reason. Somebody added me. Trills and Luna are the smell team, says Helmet Condenser. Yes, we are the smell team. So I hope I wasn't, like, rambling too badly when I told that story. I'm probably going to clip it out at the end and just, like, post it on YouTube or Twitter or everywhere, just so that people know that, what was going on and that I'm safe and doing okay and I'm back in my apartment and you will see more of me, hopefully. We are still getting moved back in. We took a lot of belongings with us to the hotel room, and it's also just, nobody's been in here to clean or anything like that, so there's just a lot of work to do, and my dog is ruining my sleep schedule, so I'm not doing any of it. But that being said, I will get back to regular, or, well, I'll put it like this, you'll be seeing me again. I'm not going to tell you when I'm getting back to regular, or what even regular is. Like, I don't know what that's gonna be, and I don't care. Like, it will be fun. I'll just do whatever's fun. I guess I mentioned I had some plans, like playing Sekiro and probably, like, finishing my what do I have going on right now? It's like Final Fantasy VIII and Dicey Dungeons or something like that. Well, fuck off. I will finish them.